My name is Lyle. I was born July 7th, 1934, in Minnesota, in a farmhouse without a doctor in attendance. And that was somewhat common at that time. My mom was a stay at home mom. Uh, I had a younger sister. She's 4 years younger than me. Uh, but later she did work as in a grocery store, small town grocery store. My father was self-employed, you might say, during that time. He'd come from a farm family, but he wasn't involved on the farm. So he was doing, during the Depression years, whatever he could to support us. And working as a tenant for a farmer was one thing that he did. He also had a truck and was able to do some work with that. I can remember that, for instance, that he hauled ice in the wintertime. They would go to a lake and they would cut big chunks of ice and load it on this truck and then haul it to a place where they would bury it like in a sawdust pit so it would keep there. And then you heard the old story about the iceman that would go around and deliver a big box of ice because people didn't have refrigerators, they had ice boxes. And my father did different things. I know he delivered fuel to farmers. He worked for someone that had an oil distributorship, oil and gas. He did that, and then later he worked in construction a short amount of time, or for a while, and then he got into working in a plumbing and heating business. And then eventually he went off on his own and had his own plumbing and heating business. My grandfather was older and went back to Norway, back to his roots area, and there he met my grandmother and brought her over to this country. And then they were married just shortly after they got here, and they had a long marriage and had 8 children. So my grandparents on my father's side, they were farmers. On my mother's side, uh, they lived in a rural area, and he managed a grain elevator where they bought grain from the farmers, and that was his career. In doing these later DNA tests, or whatever they call it, ancestry tests, I found that my father's family, they came from England and Ireland. That could be traced to London and to Dublin. And on my mother's side, they were both from had Norwegian backgrounds, and my grandmother was born in Norway. The next event I can think of that you might be interested in would be the Armistice Day blizzard in 1940. I was 6 years old, and in the first grade, of course, and this unpredicted storm come through the Midwest suddenly, and people were stranded in this school that I attended, I had three of my mother's younger sisters that were attending the school. So they took me from the school to the downtown area where there was a relative that owned a store there. And we got shelter there, and then they were able to contact my father, my dad, and he come in and retrieved me, or took me home anyway. So that was a memorable incident. World War II, that I can remember some of the events about that, or some of the things that were going on. Um, there was rationing, and I can remember that, my parents talking about that a lot, because there was shortages. I mean, you couldn't buy certain things like sugar. Gasoline was rationed, and you had a rationing card, like, or they put a sticker in your windshield, and that could determine what your class was, of what kind of, how much gasoline you could buy.
Bring me back to high school a little bit. Anything fun or interesting you remember about the high school days?
Um, I was in a small high school. There was 40 in our class, so we all participated in athletics and all that. And um, growing up, something that was common where I grew up was in a small town, that you could find a job if you wanted it, and there was always somebody that was looking for someone just to do some menial thing in a store or something like that. And so I had jobs like that, which was pretty common. I mean, stock shelves, sweep the floor, and to do things like that. Wait on customers, even. You knew where everything was in the store. A small item, but I mean, it was kind of made you feel important. After that, I graduated from high school, of course, and I attended the University of Minnesota, and I was in the mortuary science program there, and my career then was in funeral service. My first job was in a rural area north of Minneapolis, and I was there for 11 years. So, and then from there, I went to North Dakota and was able to buy a business there around 19. Well, I went out there in 1965. I was in a small community where you knew everybody, and so it was satisfying work, and um, I got along quite. Did I? I became interested in it, and I kept at it for quite some time, and then was married quite young, and we were married for 65 years, and we had a good marriage, very good. Her name was Darlene, and she died when she was 85 years old. So she was 20 when I married her. And she worked before we were married in a secretarial job, and and then she was a stay-at-home mother while our kids were being raised. She worked in a school system, secretary to the superintendent. in the office. And then when we had our own business, she was very involved in that, in the office, took care of the office and things like that. I joined the Army Reserves in 1953. Um, I, I wasn't, I checked with my draft board and they didn't think my number was such. They didn't think I would ever get drafted, but I thought I would like to get in, and I enlisted in the reserves. And I went to, it wasn't full time, it was weekends and summer camps. And I did that for 4.5 years, and then I went to standby reserve and finished serving my 8 year enlistment that way. So I was never in full active duty.
Happiest time in your life. What's the first thing that comes to mind when I say happiest time in your life?
Happiest time in my life. I think some of the happiest times was we liked to go camping. We did quite a bit of camping. That was fun when the kids were, growing up and such. So
Some of the remarkable events we like to ask people about is 9/11. Where were you on 9/11?
uh, I was retired at that time, and we were at our lake home in Minnesota, and early morning, and had the TV on in the other room. Was breakfast time, and heard the news and went right in and and witnessed the second aircraft hit the tower
Do you remember where you were when Kennedy was shot?
when Kennedy was. Oh yes, I do. That was in 1963. I was working, and we had an old roll top desk with a radio sitting on the top, and it was 12:30, I think, when it happened, or something like that. I don't know. I was there at the desk, and
What's the greatest invention that you think has happened in your lifetime?
greatest invention. Hmm. I guess I'd have to consider the computers and internet and all that, and I'm trying to learn it. Big changes in communication that I can remember that my grandkids, great grandkids, wouldn't realize is like we didn't have television until well in the 1950s, you know, and so you listen to the radio, and there was these old radio programs that I can't remember the names of them now, but everybody was that was what they had the radio going in the evening, and as you stayed around home. Had a good life. That's the main thing. Gratitude for good health. I've enjoyed that, and still enjoying good health. So interested in what's going on in the
Yeah.
world.
Any advice? Advice for me, for future generations, for your great 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 grandkids?
Mm, enjoy the day every day.